All right, some breaking news for you right now. House Speaker Mike Johnson discussing the vote on the Epstein files. Let's listen.
Use the people that I wanted to come in this morning and just clearly explain for the people back home how we got here and why this vote is happening right now. First, a quick review of the relevant history here. For 4 long years under the previous administration, under the Biden-Harris administration, Democrats insisted there was no border crisis. Remember, they told you that that wasn't a problem at all. They dismissed inflation as transitory. That's what they told us. They told the American people not to believe what we could all see with our own eyes, that there was an obvious mental and physical decline on the part of President Biden individually. And now, seemingly overnight, these same cast of characters, they've taken a sudden and urgent interest in the Epstein investigation. Suddenly, it's all in the name of transparency. That's what they're trying to tell us. But the truth is, the biggest proponents of this discharge petition were never actually interested in transparency or ensuring justice or protecting victims of this unspeakable tragedy, the Epstein evils. And how do we know that? Because the Democrats had every one of the Epstein files in their possession for the 4 long years of the Biden administration. The Biden Department of Justice had the files the entire time. And not a single one of the people who are so loud and animated right now, they never said anything about it for all those 4 years. None of them held press conferences. None of them demanded the release of the documents. And under Biden's DOJ, when they prosecuted just Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell, not a single one of these Democrats or any of the proponents of the discharge ever made any noise about that at all. So it's fair for the American people to ask the question, why now? Why suddenly are they so interested? They have such an urgent interest in the Jeffrey Epstein matter. The truth is simple and straightforward and obvious for anyone who is willing to look at it objectively. Clearly, this is a political exercise for Democrats and a few others, sadly, and it is as deceitful and dishonest as their pointless stunt to shut down the government. Same ideology behind this. Democrats are trying to use the Epstein matter as a political weapon to distract from their own party's failures. And in a desperate attempt, they're trying to somehow tie President Trump to the scandal. President Trump has nothing to do with it. He has said himself he has nothing to hide. And that's clearly what they've been trying to do. They're trying to attack President Trump. This is what they've done. They weaponized the justice system over the last several years to go after him, and this is their latest attempt. And they don't have a platform or a principle to defend on the Democrat Party side, so they put all their eggs in this basket. And that's why you hear endlessly about Epstein, Epstein, Epstein. Everything's about Epstein. Now, this was an unspeakable tragedy, we said that. And we have great compassion for the victims. And I'm heartened that I met with the victims. Our House Oversight Committee members met with the victims, and they deserve justice. It has been too long delayed. Not just justice for what they were made to endure, but also we need answers on why it took so long for the Department of Justice itself to do that job under previous leadership. Republicans, meanwhile, are working in earnest to deliver transparency to the American people, and we're working to do that in a responsible manner that does no further harm to these innocent people and the victims who have been wrapped into this. There are a few key facts here that everybody needs to understand. First, I mentioned the House Oversight Committee doing its work. That is a bipartisan effort. They are already producing far more than the discharge petition even anticipates. Chairman Comer is our chair of oversight. Some of the biggest bulldogs in Congress serve on that committee, you all know, and I've mentioned this so many times. They have been, on the Republican and Democrat side, they're deeply dug in. They've been working around the clock. They worked even through the government shutdown, and there were tranches of documents that were released even over that period. So far, by last count, it's over 65,000 documents, Epstein file documents, that are now out in the public for everyone to review. That includes tens of thousands of pages from the Epstein estate. And that includes Epstein's flight logs, his personal financial records and ledgers, his daily calendars, and so much more. And none of that is even written or included in the discharge petition. So in other words, the Oversight Committee is doing far more than the discharge even anticipates, and the most valuable information thus far has come from the Epstein estate files. That was produced because of the work of the Oversight Committee that is doing that in a professional, robust manner, using the full subpoena authority of the U.S. Congress. From the very beginning, our side has been insistent that this matter must be handled very carefully and with utmost caution and care for the victims. We want maximum transparency. We have always been about that. We want every single person who had any scintilla, there's any scintilla of evidence that they were involved in the Epstein evils, they need to be brought to justice, and it should have been done a long time ago. We need to find out who those people are. But in the meantime, you have to remember there are real people's, innocent people's lives at stake here, and young victims who don't want to be dragged into this political game because it could hurt further what they've already endured. They would be made to suffer more harm if Congress is not careful in what we're doing. And unlike our very important work that's underway in the House Oversight Committee, the Democrat-led discharge petition would carelessly dump thousands of documents without proper protections for the innocent. I brought a chart in here this morning. I want to illustrate for you what we are concerned with. Now, I was a federal court litigator. The members of our House Judiciary Committee, Republicans in particular, have many of these concerns. You have Chairman Jim Jordan and attorneys like Chip Roy, who's running for Attorney General of Texas now. You have Brad Knott, who's a former federal prosecutor, many members on the committee. Andy Biggs is running for governor of Arizona. They're lawyers, and they understand that the way the discharge petition was drafted is haphazard and dangerous. This is why we have been opposed to this point, okay? And I could be here for a long time going through all the details of it, but the big concern we've all had all along is that the House bill, if it's passed in its current form and it was signed into law, it is dangerously flawed. And our problem and our frustration is there's no way for us in the House to amend it or correct these problems because the authors of the discharge will not allow it. And that's one of our great frustrations. Let me just very quickly, we have a legal document that the lawyers, we have all drafted to explain all this, but let me give you five quick, maybe the top 5 concerns about it, and there are more. But as drafted, the discharge petition, it fails to fully protect victim privacy. I'm going to read you an excerpt out of our legal document we put together to explain all this. Congress should give the Attorney General broader authority to redact all the victim information. The discharge doesn't do that. This would prevent the release of information that could be used to unmask victims who have chosen to remain anonymous. Now, you have some very brave women who have come forward and put their names and faces out there and done press conferences and explained that justice is overdue, and our hearts go out to them, and they are heroes. But you have as many as 1,000 women, by some of the accounts, who may be caught up in this. And the vast majority of them have not come forward, probably for obvious reasons. They don't want to be unmasked. But the discharge petition doesn't have adequate protections. It risks re-victimizing those who were trafficked and exploited. And the courts have recognized this concern, by the way. I'll read you a quick excerpt. On August 20th of this year, Judge Richard Berman, the Southern District of New York, issued an order denying the DOJ's request to release Epstein grand jury materials, noting, quote, names and identifying information of victims appear in the subject materials, unquote. Judge Berman then quoted a letter related to the victims' concerns, which stated the following, quote, transparency cannot come at the expense of the very people whom the justice system is sworn to protect, unquote. And importantly, the judge quoted a letter from one of the victims. In the proceedings, she is named as Jane Doe 2. She said this is one of the victims, quote, I beg the court to make sure it is of the utmost priority that in any sort of release, all and every detail that could possibly reveal our identities be redacted. The victims of Epstein's evils deserve that protection, and the discharge does not currently provide it, okay? Number 2, the discharge petition could create new victims, okay? Because it requires the DOJ to release information even in cases where the DOJ or the FBI has already reviewed it and determined it is not credible, it is false information. Doing this and requiring this to come out could ruin the reputations of completely innocent people, such as those who have may just have known Epstein but knew nothing of his crimes, or whose names he exploited. Think of this, innocent people whose names he exploited and used to try to get close to his intended victims. Their names may be in these files, and they had nothing to do with this. And so by just haphazardly releasing it, you're going to destroy their reputations. Releasing information containing the names of innocent people would subject those innocent people to a guilt by association. It would create an entirely new group of victims who have no means to clear their names. That's a concern of Congress, and it should be. It should be. Number 3, the discharge in its current form fails to prohibit the release of child sexual abuse materials.
All right, you've been listening to House Speaker Mike Johnson there, delivering some remarks ahead of this expected vote to release the unclassified Epstein files. I want to bring in CBS News Justice correspondent Scott MacFarlane, who's been listening along with me. So, Scott, the Speaker seems to indicate that under the Biden administration, nothing was ever done to bring justice to these victims. Nothing was ever done to release these files. But I listened to Khanna earlier on CBS Morning say, look, he's been calling for this for a number of years. And then, in fact, the Justice Department under Biden was releasing files until the Trump administration, where Pam Bondi, after she was confirmed as Attorney General, said there's no here.
You can get really dizzied and really disoriented trying to follow the political accusations on this. What you're going to see later today is a bipartisan vote. It's an open question, Vlad, if anybody votes against this thing by the time it goes on the floor later. You have accusations from Republicans the Biden administration could have released more files. Democrats would argue, but Ghislaine Maxwell's case was very much kinetic and pending at that point. The worst time to release files is while somebody's being prosecuted for the crimes alleged in the files. You've got Democrats saying that Republicans have had it both ways on this, that they first opposed the release, now they support the release, that the president has pivoted. It's a day you can either really immerse yourself in the hypocrisy of politics or look at the fundamental issue. There's going to be a bipartisan vote, an overwhelming one, to release the files. That's going to nudge the Senate to finally move on this. They haven't been touching this thing with a 10-foot pole over the last few months. They now have to embrace it, and the president has said he will sign it into law.
So what is the timeline then that we could expect to see this? And it sounds to me that what Speaker Johnson is saying when he puts up that whiteboard is to say, well, hold on, there's a couple of things that we need to consider before we release these files, which, again, to the people who are clamoring for this, some of those victims, the people on both sides of the aisle who are saying that these files should be released, sounds like another roadblock.
What, the easy answer, the hard answer, or both?
Give me both.
Nice. I mean, it's a customer service business.
I love it. I love it.
Easy answer is, and critics have been saying this to the president could just release the files right now.
Today, right now,
Forget the
as
vote.
we're talking.
You don't need any votes. The vote is to compel the president to do something. He says he'll sign the bill. He could just do it. That's the easy answer. The hard answer is it's unclear what of those files, assuming the Senate signed off on this and didn't amend the bill, assuming the House passes it, assuming the president signs it, it's unclear what of this cache of unknown records will be held back anyhow, because there are still some pending issues involving people involved with the Epstein crimes. The Department of Justice will have this ability to say, we're going to keep this folder confidential, though, or these folders confidential, because we don't want to expose what's in there. It could impact criminal cases. As long as there's a folder somewhere, these questions are going to continue.
Who could do that, the Senate or the House?
The House and Senate, if they pass this bill and the president signs it, that would empower the Department of Justice to release the files, but they would have the power to hold on to some things. And if there's any piece of paper that doesn't get shared, it's just going to fuel more conspiracy.
100%. And is this a sort of a loophole for the president to announce, as he did this week, that he's calling for an investigation? I don't know if that investigation has officially been launched, but he's calling for the DOJ to investigate Democrats like Bill Clinton and Lawrence Summers. Is that an attempt? Because once there is an investigation, as you just indicated, the DOJ can say, well, hey, these files are off limits because we're investigating.
It may not be the motivation, but it's definitely an issue. The president says he wants an investigation of ties between Epstein and Democratic officials and leaders. The U.S. Attorney General has launched it. She's assigned it to the U.S. Attorney in the Southern District of New York. Yes, that could be one of the reasons the Department of Justice holds back certain parts of these files. I don't see, no matter what happens with this vote, no matter what happens with this bill, I don't see it stopping the questions and the accusations that things are being held back, even if there is a big release.
Yeah, and before we wrap this up, Scott, I mean, this vote happens today at 2 o'clock. I sort of wonder, like, it's that old song from the 70s, The Morning After. What happens the morning after? I mean, tomorrow, what will you and I be talking about?
It's important for you to know that I know that song comes from the movie The Poseidon Adventure.
That's Poseidon Adventure. That's right. It's got to be a morning after. We just got to get through the night.
You just got to survive the wave.
That's right.
What happens tomorrow, I think, with an overwhelming vote in the House, and it will be overwhelming based on our sense now, the Senate is going to be prodded to move with urgency to do the same. The Senate has not really been involved with this discussion or this debate. That's going to change tomorrow morning.
All right. So we'll be talking to you, Scott. Thank you very much, my friend. Appreciate it. Fellow movie buff in the house.